Hello everybody, SpiritGaming here and welcome to another Albion online guide. In this video, I will show you all of the builds that you can use with your Blight staff. Some of them are default builds, some of them are broken and I hope they won't get nerfed, and a few meme builds that are just to have fun. However, just as every one of my guide videos, this video will have different sections including PvE, small scale content meaning 4 to 10 players, medium scale content 11 to 24 players, and large scale content 25 players and above. Now of course I had to add some meme builds, so the last section will be for meme builds as well. I want to clarify that I will not explain any solo, duo or trio builds since I don't play corrupted dungeons and never use the Blight staff for healing 1 to 3 players. And as always, there are timestamps on the loading bar of the video, so if you don't care about a certain part of the video, you can always skip and go to the part that you are actually interested in. Alright, so without any further ado, let's start with the first build, which is the PvE build. Blight staff is generally not used in PvE and especially not as a solo healer, however it can be used as a second healer or a third healer in Avalonian dungeons or while doing chests in the Avalonian Roads. The build for this is pretty simple to understand. You want to use the Blight staff, Assassin Hood, Royal Jacket, Cleric Sandals, Limher's Cape, Pork Omelette and Energy Potion. Now depending on the content you're doing, you might need some helmet swaps, for example Mercenary Hood, Graveyard Helmet or even sometimes a Druid Cowl. This is pretty much the build, and now to explain what it does and what its uses are. In PvE, the Blight staff does not provide too much, and you can see it more of a support weapon, however the heals are nothing to laugh at. Your W Rejuvenating Breeze and your E Ruthless Nature will be off cooldown most of the time since you are wearing a Royal Jacket and in most cases an Assassin Hood. This means that your use will be the insane amount of healing per second while giving cooldown reduction and attacks with your allies by standing close to them. Another use that this staff has, that no other healing staff in the game has, is that if the whole party needs to dodge a skill from a boss or a mob, you can just follow them with your E and heal them while they are running. I know it might not heal as much as a Fallen staff, but in some cases the Blight staff can be an extremely useful healing weapon. This concludes the Blight staff PvE build. Coming up next are the small scale Blight staff builds. Now since it's small scale, I consider both 5v5 crystals and Hellgates, 10v10 Hellgates and open world content of 5 players and above. I will have different builds for each situation, so sit tight and enjoy. At first I will start with the 5v5 crystals and Hellgates. Sadly you won't really use this staff if you want to follow the meta, however in the lower ranks it is definitely usable. The build that you are going to want to use in this kind of content is Blight staff, Graveyard Helmet, Cleric Robe, Cleric Sandals, Limher's Cape, Energy Potions and Pork Omelettes. This build lets you have some burst heal because of the Graveyard Helmet and a lot of healing per second. You have 2 defensives including Cleric Robe and Cleric Sandals, and obviously the main strength of this weapon, which is the mobility while using your E. That is pretty much it about the whole build. Now I would suggest using the exact same build with a Druidic staff or a one-handed nature staff in 5v5 instead, since both of those weapons are just better in this state of the meta in the 5v5 instance content. Coming up next are 3 different 10v10 Hellgate builds. The first one is the build I use. This build consists of Blight staff, Scholar Cowl, Royal Jacket, Cleric Sandals, Limher's Cape, Resistance Potions and Avalonian Pork Omelettes. This build provides a lot of defense, healing per second, team utility, mana sustain and mobility. Now the reason why I use this build is very simple. My playstyle is to be the frontline healer, meaning I want to stay and heal my melees and tanks as much as possible, while my holy duo healer heals my backliners and he doesn't need to walk up. The Royal Jacket lets me have an insane amount of heals since the cooldown of all of my skills is lower, however it also provides utility where the cooldowns of my allies that are standing close to me go up a bit faster. The Scholar Cowl enables me to have close to infinite mana, which is really important since I am spending my skills every time their cooldowns are up, and obviously I can use it as a defensive tool as well. Cleric Sandals are my perfect defensive tool as well since I can blink anywhere I want to before or even after I get hit. And lastly my favorite defensive tool, which is the Resistance Potion, and this one acts as my second life if I am able to use it well. All around this build is perfect for my playstyle. Now if this is not your playstyle, then I have 2 more builds, one of which consists of Blight staff, Assassin Hood, Cleric Robe, Cleric Sandals, Limher's Cape, Energy Potions. I personally don't use this build since I like to go deep, but this build is also usable in 10v10 Hellgates if you want to maximize your healing potential without risking your life. The build has only 2 defensives, which for me is a massive turnoff. The Cleric Robe is a really good defensive tool if it doesn't get purged, and obviously the Cleric Sandals, which are a staple for every single backliner. Now my recommendation is that if you want to use this build, use a Violet Staff instead. This was the second build, and now on to the third one, which consists of the Blight Staff, Cleric Cow, Cleric Robe, Cleric Sandals, Limber Escape, Resistance Potion and Pork Omelets. Now I'd like to call this build a Cleric Roleplay build since every gear piece is a Cleric piece. The only way I would use this build is if I would go to 10v10 Hellgates with some randoms that I have zero trust in, hence why I have 4 really good defensives. Just like the other two builds, this one provides good healing per second numbers even though they are not even close to the numbers in the first two builds. But you know what they say, a dead healer is a useless healer, so in the end, if you play with randoms, try this one out. And that concludes the 10v10 Hellgate builds, and now on to my favorite part, which are the Avalonian Roads open road Blight Staff builds. Now for this one I will have to thank my guild leader Doc. His favorite weapon is the Blight Staff, and he had a goal of figuring out the best build for his favorite weapon in his favorite content. Now quick reminder is that the build heavily depends on your comp, which is the reason why I will have 2 different builds in here. Starting off with the best Blight Staff build for roads, and that is the Blight Staff, Cleric Cow, Royal Jacket, Cleric Sandals, Limber Escape, Resistance Potions and Avalonian Pork Omelets. Now make sure you use this build only if you are the second healer and you already have a holy healer with you. This may seem weird, but our guild runs 2 healers starting from a 6-man party, which is a big reason why we clap everyone in the roads. Again, my playstyle is to heal the melees and feel safe at the same time, and this build lets me do just that. Because of the roads meta and fights lasting for a maximum of 1 minute, this build does not have any energy issues, so instead of having a Scholar Cow, I use a Cleric Cow instead. The Cleric Cow is a must use in the roads, not just on Blight Staff but any healer slash range DPS that is not a Frost Staff. Next up is the Royal Jacket, which gets my cooldowns up faster, but also my teammates' cooldowns faster, which is guaranteed since I always run around the clumps my melees make. Then I have the Cleric Sandals that let me teleport aggressively to chase down enemies with my teammates, or for defensive purposes like blinking away or blinking through my enemies. And obviously the Resistance Potion, which like I mentioned earlier is like my second life if I use it correctly. Now I know that some of you may not like this build because it doesn't have a cloth armor, you're not aggressive, the cost of the Royal Jacket is too much, or you just don't run 2 healers in your comp, so for that reason I prepared another build which is very similar to the 5v5 Crystal build, but just better suited for roads. This build consists of Blight Staff, Graveler Helmet if you're a solo healer, or a Cleric Cow if you're the second healer, Cleric Robe if you're a solo healer, or Mage Robe if you're the second healer, Cleric Sandals, Limber Escape, Pork Omelets and Resistance Potions. For the armor piece, you can also use Fiend Robe or Robe of Purity, however those are risky since you can declump enemies, and clumped enemies is exactly what your melee DPS friends want. Now, this build is used by everyone except Don't Worry About It and a few more guilds in the Just Alliance. Now, there are a few reasons why Don't Worry About It uses the Royal Jacket build, and all of those are very simple. It's mainly because of our aggressive playstyle, our compositions, but also the fights that last for around a minute, where Royal Jacket builds provides more healing while also making everyone's cooldowns get up faster. Now that I explained why Dog's build is better in the Avalonian Road small scale fights, let me explain why you can use the second build too. The second build does not use a Royal Jacket, which means you won't be able to use as many E's and W's as the Royal Jacket build. This in itself is really bad, but also useful if the fight is really extended, at which point this build has more mana to play with. The Cleric Cow is a better clap defensive, and the Mage Robe has a purge which in a lot of fights is really useful. The LDR, use the second build if you know that your teammates are not good enough to end the fight in 60 seconds, and use the first build if you know that you're playing with teammates that are good enough to clap some cheeks in the roads of Avalon. This concludes the small scale section, which was the longest one yet, and because of that, if you have any questions, make sure to ask them in the comments below, and of course while you're there, make sure to like and subscribe. Now on to the next section, which is the medium scale consisting of 11 to 24 players. For this one, I have only 2 builds, one is the one I prefer, and the other one is the normal one. The first one is again Blight Staff, Scholar Cow, Royal Jacket, but instead of Cleric Sandals, I like to run Graveguard Boots, Limber Escape, Resistance Potion and Avalonian Pork Omelets. This build suits my playstyle perfectly. Keeping my frontliners alive is my responsibility, and this build lets me stack them up and use the E on top of them whenever I want, even when passing through chokes to engage enemies. Now obviously, if the fight is around 11 to 15 people, I will still use Cleric Cow and Cleric Sandals. However, for Zergy fights, Graveyard boots are definitely my go-to. Some of you might think that having a dedicated frontline healer, however small Zerg fights, especially in the rounds, tend to have some poke weapons from enemies or just in general exchanging blows with Qs and Ws before the actual fight starts. And this is where the build I'm using shines. And now obviously if you want to be boring and use the regular build, here it is. The build consists of the Blight Staff, Assassin Hood or Clerical depending on where you want to stand, Cleric Robe, Scholar Sandals / Cleric Sandals depending on the size of the group, or Sterling or Limber Escape, again depending on the size of the groups, Pork Omelets and Resistance Potion. Again, this is the good old Blight / Well Staff build, and it's pretty good. It has good defensives, high heals, and in general you can stand in the back and heal people up. Again, this is not my playstyle, so I never played this build. That was it about the medium scale, and let's jump to the large scale content, which includes 25 teammates or above. Again, two builds that are almost exactly the same as the ones I used in the medium scale. The first one being Blight Staff, Scholar Cow, Royal Jacket, Graveyard Boots, Limber Escape, Avalonian Pork Omelets and Resistance Potions. This build is my preferred build because of my playstyle and what I need to do in Zergs, while the second build is the good old boring one, and this build consists of Blight Staff, Knight Helmet or Mercenary Hood, depending on the Zerg, Cleric Robe, Scholar Sandals, 4 Sterling Cape, Pork Omelets and Resistance Potions. This is the default Blight and Wild set that is usable in any Zerg as a healer. It gives you high heals per second, good defense, utility with the helmets, and you already have mobility because of the Blight. And that's about it when it comes to the large scale builds. And now let's have some fun with some 2 off-meta / meme builds. The first build is the Solo Dungeon Cleric build, which is made out of Blight Staff, Scholar Cow, Spectre Jacket or a Stalker Jacket, Leather Shoes, Thetford or Demon Cape, Roast Pork and Poison Potions. This is the definition of a fast clearing Blight Staff set. The key to this build is using the movement speed passive, so you can fly through the solo dungeons. The damage from the jacket plus thorns makes this build do a big amount of damage and clear solo dungeons pretty fast. And now off to the second build, which is a bit trolly but actually works like a charm when you want to throw people. This build consists of Blight Staff, Royal Helmet or Hellion Hood, Fiend Robe, Leather Boots on the Refreshing Sprint, 4 Sterling Cape, Pork Omelets and Sticky Potions. Again, this is just a trolley build where you have a lot of CC and you are really hard to catch. If I want to have some fun, I would definitely play this build just to annoy everyone. And this concludes the end of the video. If you enjoyed or learned something new, make sure to leave a like and subscribe for more guides. I'm currently working on many more guides, however, if you think I can improve, tell me in the comments below what I should change about my guides. And just as always, bye bye until next time.